Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Inside Marketing. We're here with another episode today with our guest Peter Ryde, who is the head of marketing at the National Oceanography Centre. So, super privileged to have Peter with us today, and really looking forward to a discussion today all about kind of the work you've been doing, Peter, recently, but also throughout your career, and what inside marketing looks like for you, and what that has looked like for you all the way through your journey. So, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, really, really delighted to have you here. I think really, Peter, it's always fascinating for us to hear, and I think certainly what our listeners find really, really interesting is to hear how people who sit in these positions, who sit as head of marketing, how's the journey been for you? Sort of where did you start, and maybe how do you feel that those kind of different experiences that you've had in your career so far have kind of led you to where you are now? Be really interesting to hear your journey, if you wouldn't mind taking us through.
Yeah, sure. So right through university, always interested in marketing. It was one of those subjects which came easy to me. It clicked. I tried hard to avoid accountancy and economics and all those kind of number-based things, and really focused on telling the story and how to communicate with customers. So fortunate enough to kind of get a graduate position, and I worked for 2 or 3 years. Still had the travelling bug within me, so I took off and did the round the world trip.
Nice.
Worked for a little bit in Australia. Worked for marketing in Sydney, but then thought, actually, I'm probably going to be working in an office for the rest of my life. So let's get out and explore and maybe work out in the bush. So I worked on an apple plantation for a while. I was an apple thinner, which is when apples grow, they grow like grapes. So you have to kind of thin them out to get the right size. And then those apples were pink ladies, and they were kind of shipped off to Sainsbury's and Tesco. So
Oh wow, you were over there sending them back.
yeah. Best job I ever had.
Yeah.
But then obviously came back and had to grow up. So got back into marketing. At a company called Veolia, and I think what taught me around travelling is that I needed to do something with a purpose. I needed to have something with effect. It wasn't just the money that was driving me; it was actually having an impact, generally on the environment or society. And with my time with Veolia and Dalkia, it got me into looking at the energy and how it was generated and how we can consume it better. And that pretty much stuck with me for the rest of to where I am now, actually. So I probably spent about a good 10 years, 15 years in energy with Veolia, and acquisition into Mighty, but again still focused on decarbonising the grid, using energy better, and then on to into SSE. So working as head of business marketing within SSE, but again it was very focused on how can we do things better, how can we generate better. And then from there, literally kind of worked up the ranks. Always interested in seeing a return on investment. So it wasn't the fluffy stuff which I think marketeers get labelled with a lot. This was actually generating money and income and seeing and directing the organisation. So I guess the strategic part side of marketing is something which has always guided me, and that's where I felt that I could really have the most impact, where you could kind of build marketing into the strategy of an organisation. So a few kind of jumps, and fast forward to present day at National Oceanography Centre, heading up a strong team of a lot of creatives, communication. We're fortunate to have a videographer, a graphic designer.
Wow.
A new brand manager. I've invested in a social media officer who is more of a kind of a digital person, so everything digital, we were able to kind of really analyse where they're having impacts, and a commercial arm as well. So what is really interesting at the National Oceanography Centre is that we're a kind of an institution, the ocean science essentially. We have about 600 scientists working for us, and we're just here to understand the ocean, right from the coast through to deep ocean. Its role in climate change. So again, it's pretty much our time. But also the other things which are happening in the ocean. What's happening on the seabed. We analyse mud. We're looking at hazards from the ocean as well as opportunities from the ocean. So it's very much a kind of we need to tell people what the ocean is doing, where the opportunities are, what the threats are, and how climate change is going to impact us. And the role that the ocean plays in this. It's a lot of people just instantly think about the climate. They kind of revert to the Amazon, but the ocean plays a much more integral role to our climate. So that's a lot of our focus, really. It's kind of communicating that to a number of different audiences, including the general public.
Yeah, and I imagine it is, like, as you say, lots of different kind of groups there. It'd be great if you could kind of take us through the challenge or the first priority maybe that you set when you joined it, because I know that brand was a big focus there for you, and kind of what was the state of play when you joined? What did you identify as, right, we need to change this, and take us through that journey a little bit and how you formed that strategy?
Yeah, sure. So I've been here about 3.5 years. I think what was fairly obvious is that the National Oceanography Centre or NOC for short, so less of a mouthful, was an institution which has spun out of government. So it's very, quite stale, really. We knew that it had a big message to tell, a story to tell, but the brand wasn't reflecting it. What we needed was a much more kind of newer brand, which we were able to kind of position our proposition to various markets. But what was also quite obvious to me was that we didn't have a firm purpose. And when you're looking at brand, actually defining that purpose is core to any brand, any rebrand. So that was the first step, was to really define our purpose, what we were about. And to have that kind of consistent message and that consistent story throughout the organisation. And from there we were able to kind of build our visual and verbal and identity, and also how we behave. So having that full 360 of the brand influence, right from how we look through to how we behave, and having that purpose at the centre of it. So it's been a very interesting journey. We've made the brand younger, more playful. It's given us a lot more kind of, variety in the colours. Essentially, people think of the ocean as blue, but we wanted to kind of bring in other elements of the ocean and have our brand influenced by the ocean. So we have a yellow reflecting the sand, and pink and coral. So we have that much broader. But we also want to kind of hark back to the early days of oceanography, where an illustrator would go on the expeditions and draw some of the creatures and the sea. So we brought that illustration into the fold, which is working really well. It communicates on several levels, and again we've looked to the ocean for inspiration. So there are people that they just want to kind of dip in to the content that we have, and we call those people paddlers. They don't want to become absorbed, but they have an interest in what we do. So we develop content that is very visually appeasing, and we get a message to quite a succinct 2-3 minutes. Then we have the people who are they want to learn a little bit more, they want a bit more detail, they want to understand some of the fundamentals behind it, and we call them the swimmers. They want to understand a bit more about the science and really what is happening, what the impact is. And again, we have much longer content, so thought leadership articles, opinion pieces, and longer form video. And then obviously we have the divers, and we communicate these at more of an academic and government level. So these people really want to understand the detail. So by spreading it into those things, it kind of helps the team and helps, our scientists also communicate with the various communities that we're hoping to build.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I think that that's a really interesting concept that other people could potentially sort of mirror in the work that they do. Because I think so. I was having a conversation yesterday. I think so often we get caught up by the limitations of kind of too strict personas in marketing, and we can niche down to a specific profile of a specific person that we're talking to. But actually, by grouping them by, you know, a factor such as level of interest or level of kind of involvement or how involved they are with the ocean. That gives us a really nice way to put content out at different levels, and I guess you're seeing that paying off. Then you're getting good engagement at the different levels because you're providing content that serves those different groups.
Yeah, we are, and we recognise that people look to us for the facts. Obviously,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
are the science institution, so everything must be grounded in that fact. But it's given us license to be a little bit more playful. So we do a bit more. We're doing more animation, for instance.
Yes.
We've launched a podcast, which again, it's working really well.
Yeah.
It gives the scientists a much more kind of informal way of communicating their science. And that's something which we're finding is working well for us. That we're
Yeah.
able to communicate on all those different levels.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, really, really interesting. I wonder in the kind of in the space that you're in where, it is a very sort of educational mission and you're looking to inform, how do you define success? Because obviously we have lots of different kind of head of marketing, chief marketing officers come on here, and all of them have different goals, some very, very commercial, some in a B2B, B2C environment. For you, what are you looking at on a monthly, quarterly basis as metrics of success?
So there's we need to get our science in the press. So we want to see ourselves in the mainstream media, traditional media.
Yeah.
I think we're becoming more conscious of the fact that it is more of a vanity project where the brand doesn't really, you don't really build much equity behind that. But
Yeah.
obviously, we are able to influence the message and communicate the science, which is important to us. But where people communicate with the brand, I think it's we're seeing more a visual demand, and we're measuring what we do on YouTube.
Okay.
It's a growing platform for us. It's
Yeah.
people are increasingly using it as a search engine.
Yeah.
And we're seeing our audiences grow. So, for instance, with the podcast,
Fantastic.
we record it for audio, but also people want to actually go back and watch the video. So, we're experimenting more with how we do that podcast, and we're taking the podcast out onto location so that the
Yeah.
the visual
Yeah.
element it varies.
Yeah.
So the numbers are important to us.
Yeah.
We measure impact. We measure how people are consuming the content.
Yeah.
So it's across all our digital channels, and also the demographics are very interesting to us. So our objectives it's quite simple. Basically, we want to inspire the next generation of scientists. So we try to hit schools and a broad community as well as a section of the community.
Sure.
We want to influence behavioural change. So where we're seeing, for instance, plastics, we like to influence that kind of behaviour so that you do consume less plastics, but also to understand what the real dangers are behind that. And I think finally, it's just to increase people's knowledge of the ocean and the importance of the ocean. So again,
Yeah.
people do respect it and understand the vital role that it plays in our environment.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And just, with all those objectives considered, it really does kind of drive home the range of people that you're trying to appeal to with that brand. So it must, it was quite a feat, really, I imagine, to take something that was a very traditional institution, something that's been around for many, many years, and modernise it, but to an extent that it still resonates at the very sort of technical, scientific level, but also to children. And that must have been difficult to kind of get that balance between, too playful or too dull and scientific. That must have been a real discussion, I imagine, between you all.
Yeah, it was, but there was a desire to do it. There was a real appetite to kind
Yeah.
of communicate on those levels. Historically, we would go to the public and open up our doors and say, generally in Southampton, you come in and look at what we do. But that obviously, you've got a very small market and a small
Yeah.
number of people that you can kind of get in. And I think probably COVID helped us to get to the point where we do have a global audience, so we can take
Yes.
things online and we can do more digital content, which again is evergreen and can be consumed at the viewer's convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's a huge appetite for that, and it's really, people are becoming more and more conscious of that. And particularly, I mean, locally, we actually are ex-neighbours, aren't we? We were just over the road from you in our old office, so I know exactly where you are. And I think there's a real awareness by people who live in coastal areas, but also we're a small island. Nobody actually in the UK is very far away from the coast, so it definitely does affect us all, and I think we're all aware of that. So. Yeah, and great for people to be able to have accessible content that's fresh and that it resonates with them. So yeah, I mean the brand that you've put together, I absolutely love it. Love the inspiration from the ocean and all the colours and everything. It's really sort of brought it to
Yeah,
life.
thank
So
you.
I can definitely see that the engagement probably naturally will have grown from that. And it's always a big feat, I think, when you rebrand something with such a legacy and such tradition, because you're trying to hold and retain so many elements, but also make future-proof it enough so that we're not doing something that's just a 5-year job and then in 5 years we're going to have to redo this all again. It's something that really
Yeah.
stands the test of time. Um, so yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's
well,
always a rocky road. And
yeah.
any rebrand is always a rocky road. So
It is,
yeah,
it is. And
yeah.
so many different kind of people look at a brand through so many different lenses, don't they? And everybody will, and that's part of that's fantastic. And all those insights bring really the complexity of the brand to the table. But it's kind of the job of the senior marketing professional to oversee that, look at everything, and say, okay, right, and aligning to the objectives. These are the elements that I want to pull out and unite all together.
Yeah, and it was a case of making our staff feel invested. A lot of the staff
Yes,
here
yeah,
have been here. They are committed to Knock. They've been here a long time, and helping them to kind of feel invested in, and I guess to have their opinion on the direction of the brand
yes,
was also important. So
yeah.
that's one of the things that I have learned over the years, is that you need to have your staff invested in the things
Yes.
that you're doing.
Absolutely, but I also feel that we tackle a rebrand project with our audience in mind, with our goals in mind, outward facing. But I think it does wonders also internally, because like you were saying at the beginning, kind of it really everybody's committed to a brand, but a rebrand really gets people excited about what they're doing again, brings that purpose to the top of the list, and really reignites that sort of why and what we're doing, because it's an active discussion and we all know what we're doing and why we're doing it, but actually putting some energy into how we present that
Yeah.
really, I think, gets people on board again. So I think it can be a great sort of resurgence internally as well. And I saw you with your lanyard before, and everyone kind of gets it all shared around, and
Yeah.
that's a great energy, I think, when you bring that to an organisation.
It is, yeah. We've started to kind of transfer the visual representation onto clothing as well now.
Yeah, nice.
People
Nice.
are buying hoodies and they actually want to wear the brand. So
Yeah.
having that, being proud of the organisation is
Yeah.
a good step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. No, it sounds really, really interesting, and you've obviously got a great team there now to kind of be the guardians for that brand that you've created. So that's great. I wonder, kind of in the role now and in the next 12 months, you've mentioned kind of experimenting with podcasts and YouTube and things like that. What's kind of next on your list for something that you want to trial that maybe you haven't done before, or what are you looking at for Knock and the marketing?
Yeah, well, the one thing, the missing piece of the jigsaw is our website. We're currently running through tender,
Yeah.
so hopefully we start to kind of move on the website. But for me, it's important that again there is an area of the website which does appeal to the general public. So it needs to be accessible and engaging, and this is the huge potential, I think, for our new website, is to see vast amounts of traffic kind of running through and then
Yes.
becoming engaged and building communities that way. So the website, as I say, that's the kind of the missing piece for us. But areas which we are fully embracing and moving ahead with is understanding SEO and applying SEO into everything that we write. So we understand that there is a market, what people are searching for, and we answer those questions accordingly in the copy that we write, and also the content that we're developing. So that's important to us. We're very keen on actually improving our engagement. Engagement rates. And one of the things that we brought in to do that is to introduce gamification. It started with quizzes and things on stuff online, so people are very interactive. So subliminally you are becoming educated around the ocean because you're answering common questions. But we're moving more into more complex games. So that's really that's really exciting. We're doing more and more video. We want to fully utilize our videographer and really challenge him as to creating more and more content.
Sure.
To also take science into the home. We've got 2 research ships, and they travel the world undertaking important research. So to get him onto the ship and to document that is something which we're increasingly doing more and more of.
Wow.
So they're the things that we are looking at. Season 3 of the podcast is coming out soon. We're experimenting with that, as I say. We're bringing in guest hosts, and we're approaching. Historically, we have had a presenter who is a scientist talking to scientists, but now we're trying to bring in members of the public who have experienced climate change and have real life examples of witnessing things, but for them to ask the questions to a scientist.
I see. How interesting.
So
I can imagine that being a really good format.
Yeah. So far, it's working really well so far. So
great.
Yeah.
That's so
I think it's
interesting. Well, we'll tune in. We'll all the guests. We'll send them your way. If anybody's listening. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, it sounds like you and your team really have an appetite for kind of new channels and new experimenting kind of new areas where you can kind of take a larger slice of that market and get people to come and visit you and engage and inform people, and I think that's great. I think there's always got to be that forward facing, what's next, how else can we tap into people's minds.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I do challenge the team. We need to understand what is the next thing that's coming, but also not be afraid of failure. So let's do it and learn from it if it does fail.
Yeah, exactly. And I think particularly with education and reaching new audiences and that informational content, there has to be a lot of trial and error, because we can make our best guess as to where people are spending their time and where people are consuming information. But short of them telling us, it's actually quite difficult to find that out. So I think there is a lot of trial and error in that process. And like you say, failure can happen, but failure is only a failure if you view it as one. There's something to be learned from everything that doesn't go right or that doesn't quite get the engagement rate that we were hoping for. At least that tells us something, and that insight is a win in itself. It sounds like you have that good culture in your team, which is great.
No, it feels good. We come together. There are a number of very creative people within the team, it's a good vibe.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, amazing. And I guess in terms of kind of what you talked a lot about the positive side, the things that we're excited for. What do you think, as either as like a senior marketing or head of a marketing team in an organisation, or just as marketers in general, what do you think is kind of the challenge that we face at the moment? Kind of what's coming up on the horizon, or what do you sit and think about and think, if I only had a magic wand, I wish I could solve X, Y, Z.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the same old challenges are there than they were when I first started out. It was return on investment. Can we get there quicker? Everyone's a marketing expert. They've all got their opinions. Make this a household name. So all those. I think all those challenges. I don't think they'll ever go away. But increasingly, there is a lot of competition to get heard out there. People's attention span is reducing, so you need to have that kind of element, as they say, dare say, clickbait to capture people's attention.
Sure.
It needs to be concise and needs to be obviously believable. So it needs to, say, get to the point quite quickly. And I think that's the challenge of marketing. But I'm quite conscious as well that you get a lot of reassurance from a brand that has a certain amount of equity. So that confidence in the reader or the customer, once they're kind of they understand the brand and understand again its purpose and what they stand for, then that confidence is built, and I think that job of the marketeer becomes easier.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where we talk about the short term and the long term kind of threads within marketing. And I guess that's always going to be a challenge, particularly in the work that you're doing. There's a huge long term focus there. It's not something that you're going to be able to put out a piece of content and hope for somebody to be a lifelong Ocean fan. That process really happens over a long period of time. So that's love. Some people love that because it's a challenge, and it's okay, how do we work on this period of initial engagement and fostering that initial engagement? And some people obviously find that frustrating, particularly when they've come from a kind of faster pace or kind of B2C environment where things are very thick and fast. So I guess that's the focus, isn't it? It's looking at not what's the difference from today to tomorrow, but actually what over the last 12 months or 2 years have we achieved, and looking at the overall growth. And I guess it's having that focus where you see your success probably, and that's what you look at.
Yeah, we do. We constantly look at the numbers, look at the what is working, but also what the competition are doing.
Sure.
And SEO gives us a great insight into some of the gaps that we should be filling. So some of the things which would make the issues go away, AI, exploring the AI and making AI work for us, particularly in developing copy. That I think is very interesting. I think what is challenging and what is quite key for the next 12 to maybe 24 months is understanding what Google is up to, and the analytics and how the search engines are working there.
Yes.
Because it's sucking out a lot of data from your website, and the conversions that you get from an initial Google search onto your website, there's a grey area up there.
Yeah, sure.
Is the future? I guess is the future where the person searching for the answer doesn't actually jump onto your website, but Google answers the question for it.
Yeah.
So there's a big risk there. So which is again why we're looking at different search engines, why we're looking at using YouTube as an effective tool to kind of solve that or get over that. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, and I guess from investing in lots of different pockets of platforms and channels, you're kind of mitigating against being too reliant on just one thing. Which and I completely agree. I mean, there's a definite grey area there, and wouldn't we all love to know what Google's up to? If they could lay it all down for us, that'd be lovely. But yeah, I mean, SEO sounds like a good focus for you. AI, is that something that you as an organisation would you say you were quite an early adopter for that? Have you been in it from the start, or are you still, because what I'm hearing is that a lot of people are sort of saying we use it a little bit, definitely not using it at its full potential at all. I think it takes time, right? What's it like for you?
Yeah. Well, again, it's mixed, and I will be using it to for like page tagging and page links and that type of thing. That obviously takes a lot of heavy lifting out of the process. I've heard lots of mixed results around generating copy using AI. And some of the penalties, especially when transferring onto a website. So we still physically write our copy and tell our story that way. Yeah. So whilst we are, as an organisation, AI is something which we are early adopters of. We make a lot of modelling here. So open modelling is a big thing we do. We're also we're starting to kind of build a digital twin of the ocean, and obviously AI is an important part of that. So as an institution, we are cutting edge on the AI as a marketing department. We are making small steps, but I think the new website and developing that new website will help us speed up a little.
Yeah, yeah, and just on your point of the copywriting, I definitely hear the same, and also with the technical requirement for your copy, where it's all science backed and really, you know, factual and checked and well grounded. That must be difficult because there's blogs or there's articles that can be more based on AI because there's a lot of generic information that feeds that type of content. But for you guys, it's very yeah, very scientific and factual and has to be extremely precise. So I can imagine that being something that, you ask it to do something, you just think we could never publish something like that. Sounds
Yeah,
like something that's totally kind of written by a non-scientist.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always a challenge.
difficult. Yeah,
Mm.
it's a shame, but I think it will. I mean, the ocean modelling and the tour of the ocean. I mean, we'd definitely like to go on that. So let us know when that's developed. That sounds very interesting, and I think that that's the sort of project that is incredibly useful for. And like you said, somebody earlier on the podcast said AI really should be used like the dishwasher, where it does, as you say, the heavy lifting and all the kind of manual tasks that we don't need to be doing, so that we can focus on the more technical things. So I think to be able to deploy it for tasks like that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
But for the creative side, definitely still some way to go, I think. Um, but yeah, not coming for our jobs yet.
Not just yet.
Um,
Yeah.
we're just kind of coming to the end of the time, Peter. It's been really, really fascinating to hear about your journey. One question I always like to end on. You mentioned at the beginning, best job you ever had in the apple orchard. Um, what do you think you might have done if you hadn't gone into marketing? Obviously, you may have continued along that path. You may
Mm.
have gone into accountancy and things you mentioned at the beginning. What do you think it might have been?
Definitely not accountancy. I think I was. It would have been environment, somewhere along there in
Yeah.
the environment.
Okay. Hmm.
I was inspired by David Attenborough's
Hmm.
life on planet Earth and those kind of
Yeah.
things. So right from a young child, it has always been we need to go and do something about this because we're killing ourselves.
Mm.
So I think it would be something linked to the environment, whether it would be project restoring or habitat restoring or something along
Yeah.
those lines. I think my path was studying business at university and college and university, so I was kind of set on that trail quite early on.
Yeah.
Um, but certainly some kind of like purpose driven.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's
Getting my
hard. It's
hands
hard.
dirty.
I think for all of us, living on the globe right now, it's hard not to be motivated by that sort of stuff. I imagine, I mean, David Attenborough and everything that he shares. I mean, I think we've all got that, or hopefully we've all got that inside us, where that's a main driver and something that we should all be contributing to. What about your travel? Have you still got a bit of a travel bucket list of places you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
visit, or?
I still travel when I can. I do like to, off the beaten path really.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
So there's still a few places, lots of India that I haven't discovered yet. So
Okay.
I've
Interesting.
done a lot of kind of India into Pakistan, but
Cool.
Himalayas and
Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I hope you have some fun trips planned this year, next year, and get to go out and see some more of it. But yeah, thank you so much for taking us through your work at NOC and everything up until that point, and wish you kind of all the best with all those projects. Sounds like you've got some really exciting things coming up, a fantastic team, and a really great brand to go out there and do it all with. So yeah, congratulations on all of that. I really appreciate you spending the time.
Thanks very much, and yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a
No
pleasure.
problem, Peter. No problem. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
See you later. Bye.